Hey everybody, this is Allan Ting, TEDx speaker, #1 best-selling author. And welcome back to another episode of Expert Series Interview. Today's topic, it's all about raising athletic champion without pressure. Because I know I've been getting a lot of feedback from parents like, my kid is super athletic, has all these talent, has all these gifts. So how do we raise them so that they continue to thrive, love the sport, and really eventually become a professional athlete? Because this is what they aspire to be. So with that said, I want to bring back another good friend of mine. His name is Rehan. He's a life coach, speaker, and a personal development mentor dedicated to helping individuals, teams, and organizations to achieve their full potential. So he's got a lot of experience when it comes to coaching, also been a professional athlete, and he focuses on self-leadership, authenticity, purpose, and growth. And he specifically works with athletes, coaches, professionals in the soccer area and adults to help building strong mindset. It's because it's all about mindset to help achieve meaningful results. So welcome Rehan back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Allan. Thank you.
So let's just dive right into it. What's the most common mistake that you see parents make in youth sports, and how can they shift to be even more supportive approach?
The biggest thing that I see parents doing is actually, and this is based off of personal experience, but also based off of the athletes that I coach. The biggest thing that I see parents do and that I hear about is that they are overly involved in their kids' journey within sports, athletics, you name it. And what I mean by that and how it represents itself is, for example, kid is playing their game or they're doing whatever they're performing, and then you're on the sideline, either telling them what they should be doing or trying to coach them on the sidelines. It's a very common thing. Obviously, it's coming from a place of love. I mean, parents, they just want the best for their kids. But the consequence of that, unfortunately, is, kids are, when they're playing, when they're doing their thing, and they hear their parents saying things on the sidelines, it adds an extra layer of pressure. And I think one thing that not everyone realizes is, as a kid, I remember for me at least, when I was playing, I was already putting pressure on myself to perform well, to do well, because I wanted it bad enough. I wanted it for myself. And then if there's more pressure coming from the outside, then that can really turn into something negative. So it's all about finding that balance. And it's important to find that balance of supporting, right? But not telling them what they should be doing, but supporting them on their journey, lifting them up. So yeah, we can dive into that in a bit.
And before we dive into a little bit more, tell us about your journey. Because I remember you were telling us you started at 12 years old and, you had a huge desire. And then you went to France and, trained and things like that. And I was looking at one of your recent pictures. You were actually playing in the snow. Really, really cool. Tell us about, actually just share with us your experience.
Yeah, crazy experience. And what a beautiful one as well. So I was super passionate about soccer from a very young age. I started playing when I was about 4 years old. It wasn't anything serious. But one thing that I did have is I struggled with a lot of the self-confidence aspect of it, right? So I was quite shy and stuff. In fact, the first time I was ever supposed to step onto the soccer field, I was so shy. I was holding onto my dad's leg. I remember I can feel his jeans, holding onto his leg for dear life. And I was like, I don't want to go. I was crying and everything. But then fast forward, a few years, I moved into a better team and then moved into an academy here in Canada, and then started going to travel. I went to Mexico, I went to Chile, went to England, playing against professional teams there. And I was exposed to what it was really like outside of Canada. And I was like, okay, look, I had this passion, I had this dream of becoming a professional. And I realized in that moment, I had to make a big decision. I had to do something different if I really wanted to make it. So at the age of 12, I wrote down the goal and I was like, you know what? I want to move to Europe to pursue this dream of becoming a professional soccer player. And at the age of 13 years old, I moved to France on my own and started competing at the highest youth level in France. And in the beginning, I wasn't anywhere as good as the other players. I was maybe on the B or C team, definitely on the bench, pretty bad. But then did a lot of work, trained a lot. I was training potentially 4 to 5 hours a day on average and didn't miss a single one except if it was a rest day that I was dedicating to myself. And on those days, I'd work on other things like my mindset and things like that. So really dedicated my life to this sport and eventually moved up, became the captain of my team, competing at the highest youth level. And yeah, it was crazy because first of all, living on my own and then going through this whole cultural differences as well, because I'm living in France now, they're speaking a different language. I'm going to school at the same time, so all my school is in French. They're teaching me English in French, just to give you an idea. So I know it was completely ridiculous. English was obviously it was my best subject because that's my mother tongue. It was an incredible experience, a bunch of ups and downs, lots of some injuries here and there. And then when I would move around to different clubs and stuff, you're having having to adapt to different environments. But one thing for sure is it genuinely, like, it shaped me into who I am today. Like, I look back on all those moments where I didn't know which club I was going to be in next, and I had to figure out, like, I had to connect with people, connect with agents or other coaches, and network my way to getting opportunities, you know, getting injuries, and then how did I rebound from those injuries, like all these little things, living on my own and experiencing times where clubs, for example, they couldn't even pay me. And then I was like, well, I don't know how I'm gonna get through the month now because I'm not even getting paid. All these little things, it's all part of the journey, and I wouldn't take it back for anything, but they definitely shaped me into who I am today. So yeah, it was a roller coaster, but what a beautiful one that I was on.
Just hearing the little bits and pieces of your stories, it is insane. I can only imagine, like, people didn't pay you, like how to be covering rent, covering food. We started talking about just about playing soccer, being, you know, athlete, right? But then now we start talking about the entire life, because you're talking about your mindset, you're getting injured, your parents not there, you're by yourself, and you're 12 years old. And like, how do I get from, you know, playing B to C team to A team? How do I become the captain? And how do I lead a team? What age did you start leading a team?
Yeah, I was at 16. At 16 years old, I was named captain of my team.
Wow, 16 years old, and you're supposed to lead a group of young men, and no pressure, right?
No pressure, no pressure at all. And I was that kid from Canada, right? I wasn't the one who everyone looked at in terms of like, oh yeah, he's the one, he's been here for a while. I was the new kid in town. So to build myself up to that point, yeah, there was a lot that had to go into it for sure.
Let's talk about more about mindset, because let's say a lot of people think, well, you have to be gifted, you have to be talented, which I totally agree, right? Those are the ingredients. But oftentimes, I'm sure you've seen this all the time, the kids or teens who are actually gifted and talented, when they face defeat or some kind of life setback, they just quit. And this is on top of like parents pressuring them, okay, well, we've already spent so much money on you, like you've spent $20, $30, $40,000, whatever that is, and you're just going to quit. Now you wasted all of our money, all of our time. You can't quit, keep going. Tell us about that dynamic. Have you seen either within yourself or other kids? And if so, tell us more about that mindset.
Yeah, I'd love to. So there are two differences. I was the player who wasn't the super talented one. I didn't have that natural gifted talent. One thing that I did have was like the work ethic, right? And that was the biggest strength that I had back in the day. And eventually, as I started to work my mindset, that also became my biggest strength, right? And that includes the leadership aspect of it, self-leadership and all of that. So that's what I had. I look at so many other players who were extremely talented. We're talking about players, sure, in Canada, but players that I was playing with in France. The amount of talent that there is over there. It is one of the biggest soccer nations in the world that produces the best talent. These kids are insane. They're so good. They're so technically gifted. And the thing is about players like that is they can either get things really quickly. So they'll sign with like a professional academy really quickly and they'll just get their opportunities and they're good to go. But then there are others where it doesn't happen as quickly and it becomes a game where they have to play the game for a long time. Like it's a longevity thing. And sometimes patience is tested. You have to be willing to put in the work for a long time. Another thing is when you have talent and you're the best, you don't feel like you need to put in the work. That's another unfortunate, that's a negative thing, because without putting in the work, you're not getting better, you're not improving, and eventually people catch up to you and surpass you. So it's about finding that balance. You can have the talent, but you have to mix it with that hard work. And there's a quote that everyone says, right? Hard work beats talent every single time. So if you have the talent and you're working hard, you're good to go, right? But just know that if you have the talent and you're not working on it, you will be surpassed. And the thing is, in professional sports, in competitive sports, it is competition. You are competing. You're competing with others inherently, but you're also competing with yourself and the standard that you're setting for yourself. So how much are you willing to push yourself to get to that next level? And that's the mindset that you have to take going into this stuff.
Until then, live purposely, love passionately, and be the most remarkable parent that you can always be. We'll see you future episode.